2014 April, when I first got detected. I had a surgery. The surgery went very well and I didn't need to stay in the hospital longer. Strangely, when I came back to the studio after about a week or so, one thing that hit me was the work that, it was a large painting that I was doing then, which I kind of almost finished but not quite, was like, and my work was about the city and all of that. So it was like a pavement with this sort of a mushroomy thing coming out, which almost looked like a tumor. And it was very strange for me to sort of see that waiting in the studio for me. And so anyway, then because I just, come out of the surgery, and the scale of my work used to always be very large. So, but I said, okay, let me just start doing some small drawings or something. And then somehow I started doing these very small works, only because I felt physically right now I don't have that kind of energy. But also I think there was also a lot of things happening, which I didn't quite understand at that time. But then when I started painting, I realized that I could not get that out of my head, that what had just happened and what I was still going to, because the treatment was, I had to go through radiation and stuff. So, so I realized this was not something I could just fold and put aside, it was something, although it was a very good prognosis at that time, but still it was something major that had happened, which I didn't quite, it didn't quite go in like that, but I think it took some while to really sink in. So I just then started working with, and then when you're painting, you're not even that, it's not that I'm painting about my cancer like that, but subconsciously that is what was coming out, and from my experiences in my hospital and my various film, the X-rays and the scans and this and that, and that's how it all started. And so my 2015, the show I had in New York was the first show about all of this, which was called Masquerade. It's just been a part of my life since then. So the work just went in that direction.
The very fine detailing here, of course, more like looking under the microscope and seeing, your organs or cells with these very fine lines, is also something that struck me.
Yeah.
So I think, the detailing is something which, as you rightly said.
I really enjoy that, and then painting this sort of very detailed surface and a very sort of, like that, like a aggressively painted or like a very full painted surface. I like that
juxtaposition.
Yeah, and the tension, I think it works well.
Right. And of course, we can talk about straight away about this particular work. I think I recall from your earlier works where you talked about the city, the breakdown of infrastructure, and whether it was also about the pollution. I think that concern has been abiding, because when I see this is also for me almost like plumbing in a way, and whatever sort of.
Also, Meera, with my whole thing of this thing, I've had so many procedures and I've had so many tubes and this and that, and so it all gets connected. As like Rajneesh said, that you've been working with pipes for so long, you literally have now, I said, it's almost scary, I almost feel that whatever, I've been doing is actually then kind of literally happening, and it's kind of like,
yeah, because even then I think the connections between the body and the city were always there in your works.
Yeah, also because I've always treated the city as a body, like the surface of the city. What was happening to the city was not just that it was happening, but it was happening to, physically it was being tortured or, so it was, so as we were talking the other day, the transition, if there was it, well, it is in a way, the transition from the city and to the self was just, it just happened like that.
Very organic.
Yeah. And the only thing is, it's become now because this is just me. You know, earlier it was, you know, I was one amongst, you know,
Many.
Yeah, but this is just completely my experience. Or this literally just belongs to me. You know, so I think that also then gives another
Dimension. Yeah, it's really, really fascinating actually how, as you rightly mentioned, all these things which were external in terms of tubes and pipes really just got so integrated in your own body. I mean, I think.
And it's interesting because then I would paint also and I would think, okay, let me do. And I would think, oh, this is like that, and oh, this is so much fun. You know, I can add it here and it works. You know, it just kind of falls into place. So that's always a very delightful feeling. So even sitting in that examination room was like because all the gadgets are there. So I would keep looking, you know, and then I would keep looking. That's like, let me find something, you know, that I can use in my work. You know? So consciously, actually, I would be looking. So even when I would go in for my scans and all, when I would the thing, I would see what's written there. Is there some interesting form I can use? You know, yeah, it's been hard, but it's okay.
I guess I think the title of the show says everything, right?
So this is very funny. The title of the show, it seems when I came out of that major crisis night, and I looked and everybody was like, oh, you know, and I said, oh, I'm still here. And Deepak was standing there, and you know, we were struggling with the title of the show. So he'd been telling me, okay, now start thinking of the show, the title, you know, this is going to happen, and I would come up with something, and it, like masquerade just came, you know, so nothing was sort of coming out, and he would suggest something, and he was standing there and he said, this is going to be the title of your show.
You're so used to, you know, almost mechanically planning things and saying this will happen this way, and then you realize that, you know, life throws you so many curveballs, you know, you can't. And so for me, it's interesting to see that this sort of, as you said, this letting go, this spontaneity in a way is there. At the same time, Anjum,
it's
the
very
detailing.
It's very
you know, so that for me is an interesting tension. You know, that you know, you, as you said, the drips are there, but at the same time, there's that eye for detail and still sort of, which, you know, I think is there. So it's really quite wonderful. And I think, have you all, I mean, I can't recall, because I think the last work that I saw, you know, your surfaces were more like the red work, they're densely covered all over. And I'm seeing so much of negative and space in the, you know, where things are being
working on paper, and to work like this, you know, just as you said, just one little form, and to leave all of that khali. So this is also has been, so all of that, because I wanted to work small. It began with that, you know, just took this watercolor block that was lying there, somebody had gifted me. So I said, okay, let me start, and there were some watercolor pencils, and so, you know, kind of started with that. And then I somehow started enjoying it, and then I sort of took it forward, and then decided to increase the scale. So
so how's the shift been in terms of materiality? I mean, you know, going from, say, oils to really playing with water like this. I mean, what were for you?
So I think this helped me become freer, more spontaneous, and I then tried very hard to bring that in my oil. It didn't work for me. You know, I think oils, then I realized I have to treat them differently. But in the oils, I can bring elements like this to make it, you know, more, you know, to break that sort of stiffness. And so, because I realized I tried very hard, I tried a roller, I tried this and I tried that, but just did not work. So then I realized I should not be trying to do what I'm trying to do here in the oils, because they're just such different mediums. So, and somehow in my oils, I like that thick application of color, and you know, so it's been good actually going back and forth, because I think it helps in sort of the richness that I get in the oil. I try to bring that there. The detailing of this, I try to bring in the oils. I like using these sort of materials and then maybe not physically have them present.
Yeah.
But their
Impression.
And,
I didn't realize
yeah.
that. So when I was looking at this particular work again, as you mentioned, there's almost like a mesh, a netting, which sort of snakes through. But it also brought me to your use of bubble wrap, and a lot of these, like the button. I was thinking of bottle caps.
It all started like corrugated bubble wrap with the need of covering the surface, like making the surface more interesting. So. It wasn't necessarily, a lot of people sort of connected with the use of industrial material, but I didn't think of it like that. I just wanted things of which I could take impression, and bubble wrap and corrugated work very well because again, they had a certain structure to them. Right. The corrugated had these lines, the bubble wrap had these sort of, so it worked in the sensibility, and it also made the surface very interesting. So that's how it started, and also an artist studio always has abundance of bubble wrap and corrugators all there all the time. So it started with that, and then slowly, I started bringing these caps, impression of caps, because again the same thing. Because it was definitive, it had structure, it would give, it would break the surface. So that's how it started.
So it's interesting.
It was a very surface, it was to resolve these large spaces, that I, as I said, big canvases that I would do. So it was a great way of breaking the surface and making it.
Yeah, so it's often a question that we ask about why artists do sort of this kind of seriality, right? Whether it's a repetition of a motif, the use of stencils, or sort of repeating things, and especially like when I see this, you said something very interesting, which is how to sort of break the surface. Yeah. So has the stenciling and repetition really got to do with the surface, or is there more to it? I'm just interested to know.
I think it started with the surface, really purely, very painterly neat.
Yeah.
But when you start something, if you do it once and leave it, though, because it's like when you go to your studio every day, it's not that you might make something spectacular. Most of the time you're doing just something you're doing. You don't even realize. Yeah, but as you keep doing, as you keep repeating something, then you arrive somewhere. And I think even with this, whatever the motive or whatever, when you keep repeating is when you really get somewhere, right? Because if you do it once and show the other, then it doesn't. So I think a lot of repetition doesn't mean just repetition. It's actually, it's like walking. It's like if you want to go from here to there, you'll have to keep taking steps, right? So it's actually more of that,
Interesting.
Like when you do riyaz and all.
So I used to always see it as something like a ritual almost. Something ritualistic about repeating and so and
that's when I realized actually if I'm repeating something, it's not necessarily that it's bad, because if you're conscious of it and not just keep literally replicating. Now there's a difference, right, between repeating and replicating. So then it's actually because you're trying to get somewhere, and so it's that journey.
I remember your earlier works where you really use the inorganic to make something organic.
A lot of them are like cycle paths or motorcycle paths, plane, portion of the plane.
I didn't know you had this fascination with mechanical parts as well.
You know what, actually, I don't know, it happened. I don't know even when I started, I don't know when it started, but I think it started with just this idea of something that is artificial into an organic system or whatever. And I think it started with that, and then I realized it's because it also works, but it also satisfies my that thing of definite, because the mechanical objects are very like definite, and then I can play with that whole organic thing and that tension also.
I've said, the organic inorganic relationship. Very much also that it's interesting to see it almost diagonally here. So you have the suture, which is part of the body, the stitch, and then you have the zip.
Yeah. So that's a very conscious. Because zip is also to close, right?
That's
stitching is, after the surgery you do the stitching, which also is very fascinating because some things in the medical thing I find it very interesting and very strange and very fascinating. Is that at one level they have moved so forward, right? With laser surgery, cutting, but somewhere it's so like the stitching that they do. It's like stitching a gunny bag or something. It is so backward. I find it very strange that they haven't been able to resolve.
Right.
So it's almost like a thing like zip is so much more cleaner and so much more. So that connection I have made, the zip versus the stitches, and I remember when I first made the connection, I was very pleased. So that I can use this like again it serves, as you said, an artificial and this and that.
It came together.
And it's very interesting for me to see them like this, formally put together.
Because each of them is also possibly like a journal entry.
Yes, absolutely.
What that journey that you were doing and every day, what was happening to you at that
and
stage.
Sometimes it's a very direct reference to it, sometimes it's not. Sometimes